let's use the backup. There we go.
Sorry, it's not in my power to turn this thing on, so someone has to do it. Before I turn to your question, let me congratulate the TRT World for this forum, which I hope will bring a clarity of thought, and that's a key component of whatever we do, I believe, in this age of great confusion and uncertainty. Whether you are in politics or in business or in NGO work or a scholar, I think clarity of thought is extremely important for the decisions you take, for any programs you run, for any institutions you run. The reason I bring this up, or I begin with this, is not just to thank the TRT World for this forum, but also to point out that we have a lot of confusion about many of these issues. And without the clarity of thought, you cannot have moral clarity either. And of course, without clarity of sound...
They've got both your mics on now.
Is this on? How do we go on? Is this okay? Okay. And I also, at the beginning, I want to commend the TRT World for its coverage of the events, its policy of kind of a humane perspective on the news. The reason I again mention this is that we live in an age in which human lives have become statistics, human deaths have become numbers, real lives have become images, symbols, tropes, and things like that, where we lose touch with reality. And I think most of the crises and humanitarian crises and conflicts we see in the world, for a lot of people, are just images on a screen. For those who live through those difficulties, those trials, those crises, deaths, and destruction, I don't think the way we talk about these issues, the way the media covers all these issues, really reflects the severe nature and the harsh degree of the pain, the deep pain and anxiety that all these crises create. As an example, for example, look at the refugee crisis here, starting with the Syrian refugee crisis. This is supposed to be the age of humanism, enlightened rationalism, reason, human values, and human dignity is supposed to be one of the key values of the modern world. But look at the way the powerful nations of the world, and I refer specifically to Western nations, they deal with the refugee crisis. They see it as a problem only when it reaches their doors. And they keep telling other nations, including Turkey, that as long as you keep them away from us, from our doors, from our streets, from our borders, it's not a problem for us. You know, you deal with them. But the reality is that, you know, those problems are so interconnected. The war in Syria affects everything. The conflict in Iraq affects everything. Turmoil in the Middle East affects everything, affects global politics. Therefore, there is no immunity for any nation, for any actor to claim that, you know, as long as these problems are out there, they do not come to our doors, we do not have to deal with them. That's where the hypocrisy or double standards on terrorism, for example, comes in. We've been dealing with this issue for many years. We've been fighting against PKK terrorism. And PKK is listed as a terrorist organization in Europe, in the United States, a number of other countries. But if you look at the way they treat the PKK threat and presence practically, in practice, as if it's not on that list, as if PKK is not a terrorist organization, as if it's a liberation movement and all of that. And you see this, for example, in Germany just 2 days ago. In 2025 places in Germany, throughout Germany, PKK held rallies, open rallies with PKK flags, with pictures of its leader and so on. This is happening in Frankfurt, in most of the major German cities, where, again, PKK is supposed to be a banned terrorist organization, but they let these terrorist organizations, you know, do their propaganda, recruit people, collect money, and all of that, of course, comes back to Turkey as terrorism. Now, can you imagine a situation where any European nation, Germany or another country, will allow even 1% of this for Al-Qaeda or for Daesh in the name of freedom of assembly or speech? Why? Because Al-Qaeda, Daesh, and similar organizations, terrorist organizations, attack Western interests. PKK doesn't.